Welcome back to another episode from the Optimal Body Podcast. I'm Doc Jen.
And I'm Dr. Dom.
And today we are talking about those crunchy knees. So what is that noise? What does it mean? Is it bad? And what can you start to do about it? We're going to talk about it all. So Crepitus, as we know it, is literally just noise in the joint, right? We know that we've talked about other areas and you can present with noise in other areas. We're going to keep it specific to the knees because that's where a lot of people, when they're doing squats, lunges, or at the gym, or they're hiking or doing, or you bend down and grab something and your knees are just like Rice Krispies as you're going down. Yeah. There's a lot of fear that comes with it. So we want to be able to kind of chat through what is happening at that knee joint, particularly because it's scary sometimes when you look on Google and just try to look it up, right? That's the main thing that we want to say. Like overall, in total, we know that the noise that you hear in your knee is not directly correlated with meaning that you have a knee pathology or a diagnosis associated with that.
Tissue damage or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It just means that you have what we've coined this noise to be, which is crepitus. So we want to change the way that we kind of think about that super scary anatomy term, and it's just a term. And so I think hopefully that alone helps to take some pressure off of it. One of the studies was showing too, it's just in general, when people start to hear this noise or other friends hear it, like you said, people get alarmed by hearing that noise, right? Yeah. And so then that becomes your perception of someone said, oh my gosh, what is wrong? And it creates this cascade of fear. Now I don't want to do that movement, right? And so I'm going to push my hips as far back as possible so I don't ever have my knees go forward over my toes, and I avoid it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're just going to become tighter in areas, compensations happen, and we're avoiding movements we should naturally be going into. And I think that's hugely important and good for people to hear again repeatedly, because we have talked about knee pain. I think it was episode 10, where we specifically talked about patellofemoral pain syndrome, right? And this is, think of pain at the front of the knee, runner's knee, jumper's knee. This is a lot of what is coined of anterior or front of the knee pain.
And I think a lot of people get crepitus or this noise with that as well.
Exactly.
A significant amount.
And so that's why I was going to say, that's when then we can say, okay, if you're getting noise associated with pain, then we do start to, especially in the knee, we do start to look at things like patellofemoral syndrome. And again, I would recommend going and listening to episode 10 because we dive into a little bit more specifics of what that is. But we do again mention, okay, if the knee is taking on all the brunt, what's happening around that area? And that's what we always want to guide toward, right? Is if this is my pain point, what is happening above and below the area to ensure that I'm not putting undue stress and tension over time, over and over and over at that knee. So like Dom said, he works on his hips, he works on his ankles. And I myself have had moments of this feeling of patellofemoral pain. And this can be like, think your kneecap here right in the front. It could be right underneath. So a lot of people think of chondromalacia, knee tracking issues where they want to put kinesio tape and kind of fix it in a certain direction. Maybe it's pain more on the inside of the kneecap, the outside of the kneecap, but overall, it's right over that general front of the knee area, right? That's what we're kind of talking about. And if you hear that crunching kind of associated with that, sure, I'm not going to say that tracking of the kneecap isn't going on, but I also want to extend, what is happening to create that tracking issue, right? Is it a loss of control from the foot? Is it a loss of mobility from the ankle? A loss of hip mobility? A loss of strength at the hip? Like this all plays a role. Just being able to understand those mobility restrictions, what you need to attack rather than just like, my hip feels tight. Okay, but where? And in what motion? And why? And how can we start to address that as a whole? It's so important. And Dom and I, we do it, we preach it because we believe in it, and we've seen people have massive changes and impact. Now I want to talk just a little bit into the strength aspect of the knee as well. Because like I said, I've had moments of I'm running or I'm jumping and I've felt that a little bit right in the front of my knee. of a moment of sharp pain. And though I don't have crepitus or noise with it, it jolts me back a little bit. Like, oh, should I continue this HIIT workout? Should I continue running? And what I have found personally for me is when I take the time to do a warm-up.
Absolutely.
So warm-ups, although general, I think when you continue to learn your body, so that's why we do like the muscle activations and the optimal body, stuff like that. Because when you start to find what is not firing well, that then in turn becomes your activation. So for me, if my glute med, the side of my hip, is a little bit weaker, then I know I can do some clam holds. I can do some abduction, putting my legs away from my body to kind of warm that up. I know that I can place pressures on my quad if I'm going to start running. Maybe I do some modified sissy squats, and we can, kind of show you guys what these look like on YouTube as well if you look. But I think understanding your restrictions in terms of your strength deficits really helps to build in a proper warm-up so that when you do the movements, you're not as scared and you are more like when I know that I do that and then I continue to work through, the pain automatically goes away and I feel and I can complete the workout or the run or whatever I'm doing. Like I'm not held back from it. Exactly like you said, individual to the person. And you really find that through continued movement and continued exploration. Like Dom said, assess, don't guess. And the more that you learn your body, which is what we try to do in everything we put out, but the more that you start to find these cues that are like, oh, that feels weak. Oh, that feels tight. Like the more that you start to explore, the better that you're going to feel overall.
Thanks again for joining us for another PT Pro from the Optimal Body Podcast, all about that crepitus, the Rice Krispie, the crunchiness of the knees. If you liked anything or have any questions, comment below, subscribe. We always need to know what you want to know so we can make more of these for you.